Hey guys, it's VR Nosy here. So today I wanted to do a quick video for actually some of my friends that don't know exactly a whole lot about VR. So I've done some videos in the past on accessories, but today I wanted to do a video basically kind of talking about actually what the Oculus Quest is, what the Rift is, and kind of what the differences are. So in 2016, there was kind of a race for VR between Oculus and HTC Vive. And they both had their own platforms, their own headset, and they were kind of very different. Vive released with what was called room scale VR, meaning that it could track you 360 degrees in real life, in real time, in the virtual world, um, with two sensors they didn't call them sensors. I think they called them lighthouses that you mounted on your walls, and then they plugged into outlets in your wall somewhere, and it tracked your positioning. Oculus, on the other hand, had sensors that you mount on the walls, like the ones I have up there. You have three of them, and the Oculus came with two. You had to purchase an additional one if you wanted to do room scale. Otherwise, you had to face the cameras. And those basically plugged into the back of your computer via USB 3.0, if I remember correctly. And so that was kind of the race at the time. And over the next few years, VR would kind of evolve, and basically people wanted to not have to deal with these sensors anymore. And in the beginning, it was all about tracking, and it became more about ease of setup and how quickly can you get into VR. So somewhere around 2017-ish, I think it was, Microsoft came out with what was called the Windows Mixed Reality, WMR headsets. And so there was a lot of different makers of the WMR headsets, like HP and Samsung released their own WMR headsets that all used the same core software and functionality release of the WMR that Microsoft had released. So basically, that was something called inside-out tracking, which was kind of revolutionary at the time for VR, because basically you didn't have to have these sensors anymore mounted on your wall, unlike Vive and Rift. It had two front-facing cameras on the headset itself that tracked your movement. The problem with WMR was that it was actually very limiting for what you could do in VR. It had a lot of blind spots. So you put your hand behind your head, it would no longer track you, and your hands would kind of freeze in VR, and it would take a second to snap back out when you would move. And so a lot of people became disgruntled with the WMR headsets because of the fact that the tracking wasn't really all that good. And it has improved over time, but it still isn't anywhere near as good as what the sensor setup came with. And so basically, at the beginning of this year, in 2019, Oculus came out with two new headsets. They came out with the Oculus Rift S, and they came out with the Oculus Quest. The Oculus Rift S was basically it wasn't really an upgrade per se, but it was the next bump in the Rift platform. So it replaced the Rift that I have sitting up there right now. I do not have a Rift S, but it is the next generation of the Rift platform. And what changed in it was it no longer requires the sensors. They also moved to inside-out tracking. The Oculus Quest is a standalone device, meaning it does not need a gaming PC, and it can run by itself and do room scale VR, and it don't have to have any sensors. Again, it's using inside-out tracking. Oculus called this inside-out tracking, that was their own, insight tracking. And I have to say, it is a lot better than what came with the Microsoft WMR headsets. Not only is it a better software, it actually, instead of coming with just two front-facing cameras, the Oculus Rift S actually comes with 5 cameras on the headset, and the Oculus Quest comes with 4. So this basically eliminates the need for external sensors. Now, in the beginning, this tracking wasn't perfect. And I'll have to say, I was a big fan, and still am a big fan of the external tracking, because you're really almost it's flawless in terms of there's no blind spots. It can work in the dark. I can hold my hands in anything. I can put my hand in a drawer inside my desk and it still finds me. The Oculus Quest, though, has came a long way in terms of its inside-out tracking, or insight tracking, which is Oculus's proprietary software for inside-out tracking. And in that, it's almost now as good as my sensor tracking. It's not quite as good, but it's almost as good. And I can hold my hand behind my back. I can pass a basketball in VR behind my back and back around in front of me, and I don't have issues anymore. So it's actually gotten really, really good. And so the next thing I'm going to do is kind of talk to you about the difference between the Rift and the Quest, now that I've kind of covered a little bit about the history of how we got here. So I'll show you my Rift. The Rift platform is basically this is the headset. It don't have any kind of cameras or anything on the front of it. Again, it uses the external sensors like mounted on my wall, which you can see one up there. I have one there, one over there, and one back here. It comes with built-in headphones, although mine stopped working, and so I had to replace them with regular headphones, which I now have to, when I use this, put headphones over my head, and because I don't have a 3mm audio jack on the headset, I actually have to plug that into my PC, and so I have two cables tethering me to my PC, the HDMI cable and the cable for my headphones. And so this has to connect to your PC to work. It's powered completely by your PC. And the app that you play all these games on are called the Oculus app, and you download that app on your PC. And then you can download games and buy games off of the Oculus app and play those games on your Rift headset. You can also download and buy games on Steam for Steam VR, and you can play those on the Rift headset. And there's a lot of third-party apps out there that actually work with the Rift too. But keep in mind, you have to have the Rift software, or not Rift software, but you have to have the Oculus software running on your PC for things like Steam VR and other platforms to work with this headset. So this is it was an amazing headset, and I still love it to this day. Its comfort is out of this world. I never had a complaint with the comfort of this headset. I found it almost like wearing a baseball cap. The startup process was a little tedious because when you did have to set up sensors, it always would time out, and it took a lot of patience to get it just perfect. Once you got it set up, though, you were good to go, and you could go months without ever having to deal with that again. So this is the Oculus Rift, and again, you have to have this tethered to your PC via an HDMI cable in order for it to work, and you have to have 3 of these sensors plugged into your computer via USB, and so you're going to need a lot of USB ports on your computer and a VR-ready computer to be able to power a Rift CV1. If you have upgraded to the Rift S, then you would only need, I think, 1 cable to tether yourself to the PC, and it's not an HDMI cable. It is because I don't have one, makes it kind of hard to recommend. Tell you what it is, but it's a different cable. It's not HDMI, and so tell you what we will do. We will do a quick Google search here and we'll figure it out. Okay, so display port. That's what I was looking for. So the Rift S connects to your computer via display port. And it does not require the 3 sensors. So if you have a Rift S, that would be the difference between the connections of the original Rift and the Rift S. Okay, so now getting on to the Quest. The Quest is right here, and it is, I have it charging, so that's why what this cable right here is. The Quest is a very different headset in that it's completely standalone, and you can see the cameras now there on the 4 corners. That is the cameras that I was talking about. These 4 cameras track your positioning, and they replace those sensors up there, and so you don't need those anymore. Now it's all built in, and so that's what's tracking me in real time. The Oculus Quest does not come with built-in headphones. It has instead speakers that kind of angle towards your ears. I was not the biggest fan of those, so I waited until I was able to find an accessory to allow me to connect headphones that are similar to being built in, and which I purchased separately and then attached to my Oculus Quest. You can buy different facial interfaces for your Quest. You find something that's more comfortable for you. You can buy a lot of different comfort mods and that sort of thing. So this device is capable of playing games on its own, room scale VR, and you don't need a computer. I don't have to connect this to anything. So it uses the same touch controllers that my Oculus Rift uses. The only difference between the Oculus Rift that I have up there and the Oculus Quest right here, the touch controllers, is that with the Oculus Quest, the ring goes around the top. With the Oculus Rift, the ring went around the bottom. To actually show you this, this is an Oculus Rift touch controller. This is an Oculus Quest or Rift S touch controller. The reason for that is that inside-out tracking requires the loop to be around the top. This is required for that to work. One of the benefits of this that I really liked, though, was that when I held this controller, if I hit a wall, that sort of protected me. But that really wasn't its intention. So you're not as protected anymore, but that's required for the inside-out tracking. So basically, once I put this headset on, I have two touch controllers that I can use. Here are my two touch controllers. So when I'm wearing the headset, I have two touch controllers. These create my hands in VR. If you've ever played Xbox, these are basically identical to an Xbox controller. It's like taking an Xbox controller and splitting it in half and giving one for each hand. So if you're familiar with that interface, you would be very familiar with the touch controllers. And once I do that, I'm wearing my headset and these are my hands in VR. I can turn, I can walk. If you have a 10 foot by 10 foot play area, you can walk around in that play area and you'll actually be walking around in VR, in the virtual world. If you have a 50 by 50 foot play area, you can walk around in a 50 by 50 foot play area in the virtual world. You can also move with your thumbstick and turn with your thumbstick without actually having to turn in real life, though. So it's kind of optional to you how you navigate in the VR world. So to talk about a couple more differences between the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift, this is actually a higher resolution than my Oculus Rift. This is called this Rift CV1, the consumer version 1. Again, this was followed up by the Rift S, which I don't have to show you guys, but this right here is actually a lower resolution than this, even though this is a standalone unit. This runs on a mobile processor Snapdragon, which was actually a few years old, but the quality between this and this being powered by my PC is actually really close, and it's really good. So I definitely do still recommend the Oculus Quest, and now that you can connect, so this is the next thing I want to tell you guys. Okay, so Oculus is coming out with something called Oculus Link. They said they were going to release it in November. The official cable still hasn't been released on their store yet. But you can buy third-party cables to work with this. And so what this is going to allow you to do is, while this is a standalone device and you don't have to have any cables, any PC, anything to make this work, it has its own store built into the headset called the Oculus Quest Store that you buy games. It has a lot of the same games that were on the Rift. A lot of Rift titles were ported to work for the Oculus Quest. And you have to buy games. Some games are, if you have a Rift and a Quest like I do, some games are cross-buy, some games are not. It's up to the developers. But basically, all the Quest has its own store and its own games in there. The Rift, on the other hand, has its own store and its own games for the PC, right? Well, what they're coming out with is called Oculus Link. And the Link is kind of a software update and kind of an actual physical cable. It's going to be a USB-C 3.0 cable, and the official one is actually going to contain fiber optics for the best possible performance. And what it's going to allow you to do is connect your Oculus Quest and tether it to your PC, just like my Rift is tethered to my PC via HDMI cable. I will tether this to my PC via USB-C 3.0 cable, and I can now access my entire Oculus Rift library, Steam VR library, or any other third-party apps that I used with my Rift, I can now use with my Oculus Quest as long as I'm tethered to my PC via the USB-C 3.0 cable. And you can't really see it from there, but this on my computer right here is the Rift app. And so I have right now a cable connected, a USB-C cable connected to my computer. And this is the cable right here. Now this is not the official Oculus cable that they will be releasing called Oculus Link. This is a third-party cable called Party Link, P-A-R-T-Y-L-I-N-K, and it is sold on Amazon. I got this one off of eBay. They do sell out fast because there's not a lot of cables out there that are actually working for the Link, and they're selling like hotcakes. So it's kind of hard to get your hands on one. But it's hard to find a USB 3.0 cable with the data transfer speeds that are needed that are 10 foot or 15 feet long so that you can actually use it for VR. I just happen to be lucky enough to get my hands on one. And so this connects, I have a USB-C port on my cable. I have a USB-C port on my computer that I can plug this into. I can also, this comes with a USB A 3.0 adapter, C to A adapter, so I can plug the end of this USB-C cable into this and then plug this into a USB 3.0 USB-A on the back of my computer if I don't have a USB-C connector on my computer to connect with the Oculus Link. That now allows me, once I've connected my USB-C cable to the computer, I now would plug this in on my Oculus Quest, like right there as such, and once I do that, I will now actually be able to play all of my Rift titles from the Oculus PC app on my Quest, and my computer will be doing all the work rather than the standalone headset, but the headset will still be doing my tracking. But the PC will now be doing all the work. So now I'm getting a lot higher quality graphics and everything inside of the Quest. And I can play all my higher quality games. So I'll talk a little bit as well about some of the differences between this headset and this headset again. I want to note that really they both have IPD adjusters, manual IPD adjusters, meaning you can slide it for your interpupillary distance. Not sure how to say that, but it's it basically how far apart your eyes are and being able to get it so that it's not blurry and just right. They both have that. They both use OLED so that you get pure blacks. Again, the Quest has a higher resolution. They both have a similar style head strap. They don't both come with built-in headphones. I had to purchase, a third-party headphones for this to attach to it. The Oculus Rift did come with built-in headphones. The Oculus Rift S does not. It uses the same speaker system that the Oculus Quest uses. And so I like these two headsets because they were very similar. The Rift S and some other headsets out there are now using software IPD adjusters. The problem is that excludes 30% of the population can't actually use that headset. It won't work with them. When they have the IPD adjuster, the Rift and the Oculus Quest, it only excluded 5% of the population, and they could still use it comfortably. Or at least that's the data that I read online. So don't take my word for that, but that's basically what I've read. And I definitely, this is a feature that's important to me. So the reason I didn't go with the Rift S is I didn't want it has what's called a halo strap. It don't use this baseball style head strap, and it does not have any kind of built-in headphones, which neither did the Quest, and it did not have OLED for pure blacks. It used LCD. Now the argument is that they can produce more pixels per square inch for more vibrant color, but it does not give you those pure blacks. It's more of like a gray. And so that was one of the reasons, and it was a single panel LCD on the Rift S, which is one reason why I didn't want it. I prefer the dual OLED panels that come with the Quest and the original Rift. And so that's kind of the differences. So if you're looking at getting a VR headset, I would recommend the Oculus Quest because unlike the Rift CV1, which you can still buy off eBay, but they are not produced anymore, you don't need the external sensors, so you ain't got to worry about that. It's a lot harder to set this up. This you can take out of the box. You can be in VR in less than, honestly, probably under 15 minutes. And it's a it has a really good game library, full inside out tracking, and you can now connect this device to a PC if you have one, and basically turn it into a Rift and be able to access all the Rift games as long as you have a PC and a USB-C cable to connect via Oculus Link. And unlike the new Rift S, this is actually also a higher resolution. Now, one thing I haven't talked about is this does run at a lower frame rate, a lower hertz than the Oculus Rift. This was released in 2016 and ran at 90 hertz, and that was said to be the standard at the time for VR. When Oculus Rift S released, they released it at, I believe it was 80 hertz. And there was a lot of fuss about that because it was dropping down below the what was being said was the standard 3 years prior. And the Oculus Quest released, I believe it was at 75 hertz, and which is even further below. But I will note that I have not noticed that big of a difference in frame rate drop between this device and this device, and this device is quite a bit less than this one in terms of frame rate. Over Oculus Link, again, I believe this is still running at 75 hertz, but I'm not noticing a difference. So if you're worried about that, I wouldn't worry about it too much. The other thing I will note is that they have said during Oculus Connect 6 that this device is capable, the Oculus Quest is capable at running at 90 hertz. The problem is that it don't, because they were going to look at getting it to, but in order to get it to, it has something to do with their FCC regulations. They would have to actually get this Quest recertified through the FCC or something like that in order to get this to work at 90 hertz over the I believe the Oculus Link. So, however, the other day I read an article that was saying that I believe it was John Carmack maybe that was saying that they actually had a plan to get this to work at a higher frame rate, maybe up to